I'm Cindy Klement. I am your presenter this evening, and I just changed the slide, just a little bit, because I put my website blog up there. And the reason I did that, and it's pretty easy to remember, cindyklement.com/blog, because as most of you know, I'm quite well versed on toxicants, and my blogs are really short. They're really easy to read, and they have lots of resources that the Touchstone Essential members, you can go to one of them that you think is appropriate, copy the link and share it with your downline. And this way you can help educate them on why we need to detox, as well as how to avoid those contaminants. So just think of the blogs as just tips and resources for our toxic-ridden world. So I just thought I would share that this evening before we started. Now, our presentation tonight is on detoxifying harmful environmental plastics from our body. I mean, as you know, as illustrated in the picture, the plastics are everywhere outside of us, but folks, they are getting inside of us as well. So we're going to talk about that this evening and put a plan of action together. So specifically tonight, what we're going to be addressing are what are known as plastics chemicals, and they are phthalates and BPA. There's many, but these are the two we're going to focus on tonight. And these chemicals enter our air, our soil, our water, and they make their way into our bodies. Now, there he is. Craig, there you go. You on? I can see you, Craig. Phthalates are a group of chemicals that are used to make plastics more durable, and they're often called plasticizers. Now, BPA is a chemical that's just used to harden plastic. So developed in the 1920s, phthalates are, as I mentioned, these chemicals that they add to plastics to create more heat resistance, more transparency so we can see through the plastic, a little bit more durability. And they also use it in products that are manufactured from polyvinyl chloride, something called PVC, which has been in the news a lot lately. It's an extremely toxic chemical that was burned after that train derailment in East Palestine, Ohio. Now, phthalates are used to manufacture really lots of useful things in our life outside of our house. They're used in the manufacture of garden hoses or little swimming pools, for instance. And then inside the home, they're used to produce things like carpeting or shower curtains, vinyl flooring, tile, wallpaper, even paint and furniture. So they do have their place, but like I said, they end up in our bodies. And luckily we do know how to detoxify them. Now, phthalates are also used in clothing to protect our clothing, such as in raincoats and gloves and artificial leather. They're in our medical supplies, in the blood storage bags, or in the medical tubing. Phthalates are in our food packaging, and they're even used as a coating on pharmaceutical medications, which just kind of makes me crazy thinking about that, but that's the way it is. Now, unfortunately, phthalates are released from these plastic products, so our routes of human exposure can include getting them orally, breathing them in through inhalation, by ingesting them, or even through what's called dermal contact through our skin, as well as through medical devices. And although these phthalates, they are not bioaccumulative, which means that they aren't stored in our bodies. We are continuously exposed. So they're constantly detected in our tissue and when they do research as well. Now, unfortunately, phthalates act as a synthetic estrogen in the body, and therefore they can negatively influence our thyroid hormones, our bone formation, and they can cause, depending on how much is in the body, insulin resistance, which of course can lead to obesity as well as these phthalates can increase our risk for premature breast development, as well as breast cancer. And in addition, these phthalates have been strongly associated with shorter pregnancies and resulting in a premature birth. So these chemicals are something we want to know about and get them out of our body, and thank goodness we can. So not only are these phthalates what we call pro-estrogenic, so acting as a synthetic estrogen, but they're also anti-androgenic. Now, androgens are the male hormones. So when that happens, they have the potential for altering the male reproductive system as well. Now, beginning, oh my goodness, 24 years ago in the United States, every 5 years, 6 metabolite levels of these phthalates are monitored in about 5,000 people. And sadly, this data shows that phthalates are detected in 100% of our children and nearly 50% of the adults. So again, this is something we want to know about. We want to know how we're exposed, and luckily how to get it out of our bodies. So to limit our exposure, we need to refrain from the use of artificial fragrances. So think about artificial perfumes or artificial candles, or not artificial candles, but the scent that they use, or these air fresheners. And it's maybe time that we consider those essential oils. But we also want to avoid containers that have that number 3 recycling code on them, as well as these bottled water. We also want to purchase our vegetable oils, believe it or not, in glass, as well as our acid foods, so maybe like tomato products. Tomato products and oils, what they do is they tend to, the chemicals in the plastic tend to migrate to fatty and acid foods. So buying our vegetable oils in glass, buying our acidic foods either in glass or in cans that haven't been lined with plastics. We also might want to consider phthalate-free toys or phthalate-free building and renovation materials. And again, if you visit my blog, it's just cindyklement.com/blog. I don't even know how many there are, maybe a couple of dozen of blogs there. And there's one on building and renovation products. There's one on toys. There's one on personal care products. And I don't promote any goods at all. I just give you the resources that you need in order to avoid these contaminants. Now, of course, the slide says limiting exposure occupationally. Well, that's extremely difficult to avoid occupational exposure for someone that's working in the plastics industry. But again, my work is going to provide you with these countless resources to help you avoid them outside of being occupationally exposed. But again, we can detox our bodies from these plastics and just try to avoid that further exposure. Now, we're going to switch gears a little bit here, and we're going to go to the BPA. Russian chemists first developed BPA in 1891, and then this commercial production began in the United States in the late 1940s and early 1950s. Now, BPA is typically used for in the manufacturing process of polycarbonate plastics, and it's got good things that it can do. I mean, it coats our cars and boats, and sadly, this part I don't like, but even our drink containers. It's also found in dental sealants, in those thermal receipts that we get, the little skinny credit card receipts we get these days, newspapers. It's also manufactured for piping or CDs and DVDs or cell phones, computers, the circuit boards in our computers, any kind of safety equipment, including eyeglass lenses and flame retardants. So there's a lot of use for these chemicals. It just gets to be a kind of a bad thing once it gets into our body and starts creating havoc. So how are we exposed to BPA? We can be exposed through water, through eating fish, from, as I mentioned, the foods that are packaged in plastic, through paper products, and through air and dust, believe it or not, as well as those medical devices. Now, when it comes to water, we're exposed mostly through our bottled water due to what we call the migration of the plasticizers from the bottle that gets into the water, and then we drink it. There was a study done about 10 years ago that showed BPA was detected in every bottled water. Every brand had BPA in it. And something important to know is that this migration of BPA from the plastics bottles into the water that we drink, well, I don't drink, but that one drinks, these chemicals increase their migration with hot temperatures. So again, if you're storing it in a cool place, you're not going to get as much of the BPA as if it's stored in a really hot garage or the trunk of your car. And oftentimes when I'm out visiting my daughter in California, it seems everyone has their garage door open, to get some of the heat out. And I will see cases and cases of these bottled water sitting in these hot garages, or, look over in someone's car in a parking lot and you see that bottle half drank sitting in a very hot car. And I got to tell you, folks, I just cringe because, again, people aren't aware of this. And this is where we have to get really serious about educating people. Now, in the end, it's best to avoid all plastic if you're able to, but at the very least, you want to avoid those recycling symbols that have a 1, a 3, a 6, or a 7. Those are the ones we definitely want to avoid. And it's recommended that instead we look for the recycling codes 2, 4, and 5, because those plastics are considered to be a bit safer. Now, it takes time to kind of clear your kitchen, especially of these plastics. But my husband and I have done a really good job over the years by changing to all stainless steel, beverage containers when we leave the house, or we now have all glass that we store things in, which at times can be a bit cumbersome because it's heavy and it chips. But in the end, will be a lot safer. Let's see, where am I now? Well, okay. Actually, I want to go back to that slide for just a moment. I want to talk about the fish. When it comes to the fish consumption, there was a study done on the fish in the Allegheny and I think it's called Monongahela rivers near Pittsburgh. So any of you near Pittsburgh, let me know how I did on that pronunciation. But that study showed that BPA was detected in 76% of the fish. So does that mean we can't eat fish anymore? Well, again, if you go to my blogs, there's one entitled Seafood, Sushi, Eggs, and Yogurt. And in that, and again, they're all very short, there's links for you to actually check the seafood, and it gives you information on an app that you can put on your phone to find these safer foods. And of course, daily detoxification will also help if we want to continue to ingest that fish. Now, what about the packaged the foods that are packaged in plastics? Well, again, as I mentioned, the fatty foods and the acidic foods extract that BPA from the plastics containers, as do storing leftovers wrapped in plastic, or through those BPA-lined cans, plastic tableware, microwaving your food in plastic containers. This all enhances that transfer of BPA into our foods. And sadly, BPA is detected in both breast milk and in colostrum these days. And think about it, that's an infant's first nourishment. It really does break my heart. Now, I want to tell you, if you simply Google, or whatever you use, but Google just 3 words, EWG, which stands for Environmental Working Group. So you Google EWG, BPA, cans. That's all you have to do. When that website comes up, you'll find 78 brands of canned food that use BPA to line their cans, and they'll also give you 31 brands that don't line their cans with plastic, and that's really a very easy switch. Now, BPA is also used in, it's a developer in paper production. So it's found in paper plates, and paper cups, and to-go boxes. It's in newspapers and magazines. And folks, it's even in our toilet paper, for goodness sake. But another culprit are these thermal receipts that I mentioned. What happens is we touch them, and the BPA is then transferred to the skin. So we are exposed dermally after handling those receipts. Then, if our hands aren't washed before consuming food, the BPA enters our body orally on the food that we're eating with our hands. So it's really important that we wash our hands more often, right? Now, unlike the phthalates, the BPA is stored in our body. Unfortunately, it has been found in placental tissue, amniotic fluids. It's been found in colostrum, umbilical cord blood, as well as adipose fat tissue, or just fat tissue in the body. And in fact, most of the toxins that we are exposed to are stored in fatty tissue, including our brain, our bone marrow, and the organs in our body. So think about this: as people gain weight and fat accumulates on their body, the toxicants also accumulate. Things like DDT or heavy metals or persistent organic pollutants, they're also trapped and concentrated in fat. So something to consider is once someone starts to lose weight, these accumulated toxins are released then into our bloodstream. They become mobilized. So oftentimes when people first start on a weight loss program and they have success losing weight, they could possibly start to feel maybe some headaches or some nausea or just not feeling well when those toxicants become recirculated throughout the system. And that's where the beauty of detoxification comes in, because they feel sick because they're suddenly experiencing that concentrated toxin in the bloodstream that have accumulated in their fat for years. And again, now they're being mobilized. So it really does make sense, doesn't it, that we should be detoxifying people always who are on a weight loss program. All right, let's go on to how we can limit our exposure. As I mentioned, consider glass and stainless steel as best you can, or even paper for your food storage. There's a brand called If You Care, and they have paper that is BPA free, and they have little paper sandwich bags, and they have waxed paper and things like that they use, and parchment paper. So you could consider that. But again, wash your hands after handling these thermal papers and test your well water. If you're drinking well water, make sure that you test your well water regularly. You might want to explore the safe options to disposable dining ware, so we stay away from the BPA in the paper cups and paper plates, and I do have a blog on that as well. You can adhere to fish advisories. You can check whether your canned goods are lined with BPA, but you also may need to give up smoking. Did you know that cigarette filters contain up to 25% BPA? Remember how we talked about the heat transferring that? So be very careful with those cigarettes. So now that we have some facts, let's talk about detoxifying those plastics. And where do we start? But I always say this: please start with young childbearing aged women and men. Teach them about BPA, teach them about phthalate exposure and the potential dangers to their future offspring. Get them to detoxify. And thanks to the researchers at the University of Alberta in Canada, that's led by Dr. Stephen Genuis, we do know how to detoxify plastics from the body. When I was writing my book, I was in very close contact with his department. And in fact, his students use my book in their coursework. So that's kind of an interesting thing. But he was such an amazingly genuine, caring man, and he really wanted to help me spread the word. So I was very blessed to have that opportunity. But what he says is we need to start with water. We want to drink plenty of it, but good, clean water, not bottled water. And then we want to sweat it out as much as we can, whether it's regular exercise or regular sauna use. We've got to get that stuff out. And then we want to get plenty of phytonutrients. There are approximately 25,000 phytonutrients that have been discovered so far, and some of the most well-studied plants that are high in phytonutrients are things like apples and green tea and flaxseed, or cruciferous vegetables, or gums, or root vegetables, tomatoes and grapes and turmeric. And gee, don't those ingredients sound a little familiar? Because Touchstone Essential uses so many of those well-studied plants in their products. So they feature things like carrots and beets because they're rich in carotenoids. And the carotenoids, they tackle those harmful free radicals that damage the tissue in our body. And carotenoids are what produce that red, that deep red and that deep orange color in plants. Whereas lycopene produces like a pink or like a reddish color in plants. So think grapes and tomatoes, they're very rich in lycopene, which is linked in just one instance, linked to a lower risk of prostate cancer. And then lutein is something, phytonutrient that produces that very deep, dark yellow color, such as in a really healthy egg yolk, and that is needed for our eye health. Now, flavonoids, they're a really large class of pigments, so pigments like colors, and these flavonoids help to reduce inflammation in the body. They're found in things like apple and green tea and grapes and broccoli and cabbage. And by the way, broccoli and cabbage are also rich in something called glucosinolates. And what they do is they hold in check the growth of abnormal cells. There are health benefits to lignans, and they include lowering our risk of heart disease, menopausal symptoms, osteoporosis, breast cancer. And so you get a little bit of lignans in foods like apple or green tea or flax or tomato, or again, broccoli or cabbage. And when it comes to polyphenols, there are over 8,000 different ones that have been identified so far. So we always stress these plant foods, because they're just so rich in nutrients. And the polyphenols are antioxidants. And so what they do is they protect us against this oxidative stress. And so some of the examples of like a polyphenol food would be like turmeric or apple or green tea. And really, folks, a great way to get so many of these amazing phytonutrients on a daily basis is to supplement with things like organic super protein or super green juice, essentials, or wellspring. And there's even just a little more goodness from 4 very notable plants. For over 2,000 years, ginger has been known as a liver protective. It's antispasmodic. It improves the tone of the intestinal muscles. It can aid in digestion and diarrhea and nausea. And ginger is found in wellspring. Aloe has been used for thousands of years for constipation and was one of the most frequently prescribed herbs throughout most of the 18th and 19th centuries. And it remains one of the most commonly used herbs in the United States today for digestive health. So ginger is found in organic super protein as well as in essentials. Now, dandelion, the traditional Chinese medicine group, has used dandelion for diarrhea, to help improve the immune system, to detoxify the liver and gallbladder, and to aid in kidney function. Dandelion is in super green juice. And lastly, the studies show that milk thistle protects the liver from toxins. It helps the liver repair itself by growing new cells, and it's often recommended to patients with chronic liver disease. And we've got a little bit of milk thistle in super green juice as well. We also need probiotics. We need to replenish those prebiotics and probiotics to help feed that gut microbiome in order to detoxify plastics. I mean, who knew? There was a study that was done on rats, but still it's very interesting. They found that rats exposed to BPA in their diet, those that were given probiotics, their blood concentrations of BPA dropped dramatically from the use of probiotics and prebiotics, which of course are found in Super Greens Plus D as well as Super Green Juice. Now, daily detoxification is certainly a must in this crazy world we live in, this toxic world filled with heavy metals and pesticides and herbicides and other chemicals and more. The toxins are in the food that we eat. It's in the water that we drink. It's in our personal care products, in our household products, as well as in the air that we breathe. And remember, even small amounts of toxins are stored in fat cells, and it can make it really hard to lose weight. These small amounts of toxins can actually mess with our memory, with our clarity, with our focus. They can interfere with our immune system. They can disrupt our hormonal, which is called our endocrine system. They can affect our energy levels. They can make it harder to fall asleep or cause poor sleep quality. So for additional detoxification of plastics chemicals, we need zeolites. Now, powdered zeolites and most detoxification programs only cleanse the colon, but that's not where the majority of the toxins accumulate. As I mentioned, they're stored in your organs, they're in your fat, they're in your blood, they're in your cells, they're in your bone marrow. So Pure Body and Pure Body Extra are going to work together to provide that whole body detox. And it's a natural way to clean out the environmental toxins that our cells are fighting every single day. Now, Touchstone Essentials products have natural zeolite, and it's been purified, as they say, to perfection, making it one of the most effective detox products on the market today. And it doesn't take much time, folks. It's 4 squirts. In 30 seconds, I would say in 10 seconds a day, you can help rid your body of these toxicants and really experience improved energy and well-being. So let's get busy detoxifying the plastics and then avoiding additional exposure when we can, because now we know how these plastics affect our body, but we also know how to detoxify them. And when you take your Touchstone Essential products on a daily basis, you are providing the body with the nutrients it needs to enhance detoxification, to help nurture and heal the body, but really to protect those future generations from contamination in the womb or through nursing. Detox those young parents, please. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Sorry about our technical difficulties in the beginning. I would like to invite you to join us on March 23rd for a presentation explaining how to achieve natural energy without the use of stimulants. But in addition, I'd like you to join us, if you can, on March 30th for the presentation on brain health that was postponed due to a lack of internet and electricity in Michigan during our ice storm on February 20th. So we hope to see you then. Back to you, Craig.
Well, thank you. I guess it's not back to me because I'm just joining you. I apologize for joining late. Had some technical difficulties, but somehow it worked out. Thank you, Cindy, We appreciate it. This has been fantastic information that we will all benefit from. So thank you so much for everything. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being with us tonight. We'll see you next time.
Thank you. Good night.
Have a good night.